The Year to Their podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Year to Their, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to Their podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. I am your host, Phil Gramlich, and each and every week I will bring you a different Walt Disney World word and then give you background, history, stories, tips, tricks, advice, all kinds of stuff about that word. Now let's get right into it. This week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week is brought to you by the letter W. W for weird. And I actually thought about doing a Word of the Week episode on the Museum of the Weird, which if you haven't heard of the Museum of the Weird, that's because it was never built. It was an idea by Rolly Crump because he had all these things that he wanted to put into the Haunted Mansion that Walt thought maybe didn't really fit into the Haunted Mansion. So he said, all right, Rolly, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a Museum of the Weird, and you can put all of the stuff that doesn't fit into that museum. Sadly, Walt passed away before the Museum of the Weird could be built, and it never was. But recently, a few years ago actually, there was a Museum of the Weird comic book that was produced that had a lot of those ideas that Rolly Crump had in it inside the comic book. But, like I always do, I always go on tangents, but this episode is not about that Museum of the Weird or the comic book. Instead, the weird that I'm talking about here probably affects you. I know it affects me, but it probably affects you because you are listening right now at this very moment to a Disney podcast. And the way the word weird comes in is I'm sure you, as I, have been called weird for your love or for your passion or your obsession even about Disney. Look, we all have those people in our lives that just don't get it, right? They don't understand why you go to Walt Disney World with every vacation that you take. They don't get why stepping out of your comfort zone is going to Disneyland or going on a Disney cruise. It makes no sense to them that on your iPod, on your running playlist, you have Disney park music or Disney movie theme songs. They don't understand it. There's a disconnect. It just doesn't compute for them. And I have to tell you, I understand. I get you. You see, this was me as a college student and as a high schooler, because I knew after my first trip to Walt Disney World in 1991 or 92, I always forget the year, but I knew after my first trip that this was it for me. This was my new favorite thing, that Disney and Walt Disney World and Disneyland would be something on my radar and something that I talked about for the rest of my life. And I had those people in my life, especially when I was much younger, that would tell me it was a weird thing to have as a hobby. And listening to Disney music and watching Disney movies and going to Walt Disney World for every vacation was weird. And I'm sure you have those people in your life as well. And I just want to tell you, and this is what this episode of the show is I want to tell you, guess what? You're not weird. You're not. And there are not hundreds, not really thousands, but millions of people that are just like you. I know it because I went on the Disney college program at 19 years old, and I met Disney fans who were working for the company alongside me, who were much bigger Disney fans than I ever was. They were there not to make money and not to, earn this phenomenal living or get the great benefits that the Disney company offers, even though the benefits are pretty good working for Walt Disney World, I have to admit. But they weren't there for any of that. They were there to be a part of it. They were there to be just a tiny piece of that magic. They were there to make magic for other people, for the guests, each and every single day. And that's why I decided to be a cast member. I decided to be one because I loved the park and I love the company and I love the service that the cast members provide to the guests on a daily basis. That's why I first applied to be a custodial host. I wanted to be the one interacting every day with the guests, and I wanted to give them directions, and I wanted to help explain things to them. I loved that aspect of the job. I loved doing that so much that look what I did as an adult in my mid-30s. I quit everything that I was doing before. I opened a travel agency that specializes in Disney travel. I started this podcast against my own better judgment. I mean, honestly, I was afraid of people hearing my voice because I don't like it. I didn't know if I would have anything interesting to say. I didn't know if I could come up with topics or get guests or all of that stuff. But here I am, like 2+ years later, and it's all because I embraced the weird and I embraced my love of Disney. I mean, honestly, I have to say, and this is all 100% honest, without Disney, I wouldn't have anywhere near the life that I have today. I wouldn't be married to the awesome woman that I'm married to because we met on a Disney college program. She was actually walking across the parking lot in our apartment complex, and she was lost because Amy tends to get lost most of the time. And she approached me and she said, "Do you know where apartment..." Well, I don't remember our apartment number at this point, but she asked, I think it was 603. So let's say she asked where apartment 603 was. And I said, "Yeah, I know where that is. That's my apartment." Here she was going on a date with one of my roommates, and that is how I met my wife. So long story, well, that's a very, very long story. I'll have to tell a different time, but that's how we met. We didn't start dating till several years later, but we met on that day on my college program. So think about that. Because I embraced my love of Disney, I got married. We have the awesome, amazing kids that we have. I started a business. I started a podcast and a Facebook Live. And because of my love for Disney, you are listening to me right now. How cool is that, right? Again, all because I embraced that weirdness, that weird thing that people said I was strange, right, for loving or for being into or being obsessed with. I mean, your obsession might not go as far as mine does. I mean, I'm sitting in a office in a studio decorated in Disney memorabilia from the past. I have a guide map right in front of me from the Magic Kingdom that's framed from, I believe, like 1974. I have another guide map to my left that is framed on the wall from Disneyland from 1983. I have, okay, get ready for this. I have the Olszewski Disneyland set, the complete Robert Olszewski Disneyland Main Street set. I collected it piece by piece over the years after seeing it on our honeymoon in 2008. We actually saw it in Disneyland. I believe it was in the Disney Gallery then. They had it on display. So I said to my wife, who was amazingly patient and also a huge Disney fan and nerd like me, I said, "I want to own that. I want that to be in our house." And she said, "Okay, I'm not going to have anything to do with it, but go ahead." So several years and several thousands of dollars later, I have that complete Main Street set in my house. I'm not going to tell you the number of thousands of dollars that I spent because even I, as a huge Disney nerd, have my secrets, but it cost me well over the sticker value, the sticker price of that set. But again, it's all about following your passion and finding that one thing that you love and figuring out how to make it this huge part of your life, right? Some people get Disney tattoos on their legs or their forearms, or I'm afraid of needles, so I don't do that. Instead, I've collected things and I've made Disney this huge part of my life. I mean, it's my job, it's my hobby, it's my vacation spot. My kids have been to Walt Disney World. I can't even tell you how many times. They're actually taking their first trip to Disneyland very soon. We've been on a Disney cruise. And my kids are growing up complete Disney fans and Disney, nerds. And I use that term affectionately. They are becoming that way now as well. As a matter of fact, my oldest daughter came up to me yesterday and told me, Dad, I can't wait for you to show me all the places where Walt Disney used to be in Disneyland. She's 6.5, and I was so excited. I was thrilled. I cannot wait to show her Disneyland and to get her excited. And it's such a cool thing to be able to share that with your kids. Also, because of Disney, I've embraced running. I was a runner before, but I was never a distance runner. I actually never even thought about running a long distance race. Then in 2011, I heard that you could run a half marathon in Walt Disney World. And I was like, hey man, I am in, sign me up. And I started training and I ran the 2012 Walt Disney World half marathon. That was my first distance race. And since then I've run a lot of them. I mean, I've become a marathoner. I've become a goofy runner. I've even become a dopey runner. Those are things I never thought would have been possible. I never thought I would have had the commitment and the dedication to run 48.6 miles over 4 days. If you would have told me even starting out in 2011 that I was going to do that, I would have said you were nuts. But because of my love of Disney, I developed this love of running and running through the parks. And the marathon is the only race where you get to run through all 4 theme parks in one day. Sure, you could visit all 4 theme parks in one day, but you can't run through them. So when I say Disney has touched every single part of my life, and I am so passionate about it for a reason, and it has rewarded me back. I mean, I can't tell you how much enjoyment and how much fun I've had in the parks and during races and doing this podcast and booking people's vacations. I've had such a great time. I've met amazing people. I've talked to Disney celebrities and met Disney celebrities. I mean, I had Julie Andrews on this show. Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins. I interviewed her. I spoke with her because I just gave in and I embraced the weird. When you do that, you feel so much better, right? Don't hide your Disney shirts or your Disney figurines or your CDs or DVDs or cassettes. Yes, I said cassettes. I actually had a awesome boombox in the 80s and 90s. But don't hide that stuff. Wear that Mickey shirt proudly and sport that Donald Duck tattoo on your calf very, very proudly. Wear that goofy hat or your Mickey ears to the supermarket. Who cares? Who is judging? And if they are judging, it doesn't matter. Let them think what they think. Be you. Embrace the weird. Be a Disney fan like me. I just want to close it out with one little story. People that I don't really know well, like the parents of kids in my kids' schools or their camps or our neighbors. They've seen my stuff on Facebook and they've seen my office and my collection. And they actually, the one thing they want to see when they come to my house is my Disney stuff. They want to see that platform with all the buildings on Main Street, USA. They want to see my office where I record this podcast with all my Disney fan stuff in it. They want to see where I am building my own Trader Sam's. Yes, you heard that right. If you haven't listened to a show before, I am building my own Trader Sam's in my home. So yeah, again, my obsession may go a little bit further than yours does. But that's what everyone wants to see. That's interesting and it's cool. And listen, we're living right now in an awesome time where people who used to be kind of marginalized or maybe even made fun of as being nerds or Disney nerds, they're not anymore. There are countless pages on the internet and on Facebook and all kinds of stuff that celebrate the Disney nerddom, and they embrace it and they shout that they are Disney fans from the rooftops. Well, not the real rooftops, but you know what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. So be you, be a fan, be a huge Disney nerd, a huge Disney fan, and just embrace the weird. And that is going to do it for this week's Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. Thank you so much for listening to this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like me. Well, yeah, I hope you like me. But I hope you can embrace your inner Disney nerd like I have. And if you did enjoy this episode and you know of someone who would really enjoy it as well, please just share it with them. I'm sure you know another big Disney fan that might kind of get something out of this episode. So please just share that with them. I'd really appreciate it. All right, just remember there will be a new episode of the Walt Disney World Word of the Week each and every Wednesday morning, as well as a new episode of the regular Ear to There podcast each and every Monday morning. So until next time, have a fantastic week. Go out there, embrace the inner Disney nerd in you. Bye-bye.